Okay. All right. Today we are going to talk about the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and income inequality. So, a little introduction. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is one of the most significant tax reforms that passed in recent years. Um, and even more so with the One Big Beautiful Bill that just passed in July of 2025. It changed the tax rates, deductions, and corporate taxes in ways that affect families, workers, and businesses. Supporters of the TCJA, they argue that it would stimulate growth, help families, while critics argue that it would increase inequality and reduce federal revenue, according to the Tax Policy Center. The purpose of this presentation is to examine income inequality as a social problem connected to this policy. We will also review the TCJA structure, political influences, strengths, weaknesses, and possible improvements. Income inequality is a serious social issue in the United States. It affects people's ability to meet basic um, research shows that the gap between the high income earners and the rest of the population continues to grow, and many families struggle with the rising cost of housing, healthcare, and childcare, according to the Center of Budget and Policy Priorities of 2021. So, income inequality is defined by wage stagnation, limited benefits, and financial stress. The causes of this problem include low wages, loss of stable jobs, high living costs, and policies that favor higher income households. Tax policy has a major impact because it influences how much income people keep and how public programs are funded. When the wealthy receive larger tax breaks, fewer resources are available for programs that support vulnerable groups. As we have recently seen with this new administration, um, with there's no money coming in, um, these tax breaks and things like that. We don't have money to fund important social programs. Income inequality is viewed as a social problem because it goes against common values of fairness, equal opportunity, and economic security. Social work values include dignity, access to resources, and reducing barriers for marginalized populations. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Um, so when this was passed in December of 2017, it lowered the personal income tax rates, it increased standard deduction, it doubled the child tax credit, and it limited deductions such as the state and local tax, like the SALT deduction. The biggest change was cutting the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, which is permanent, according to the Tax Policy Center of 2018. Individual tax cuts, these were temporary and not, many people did not realize that they were temporary, but they expired um, at the end of at the end of 2025. But with the new One Big Beautiful Bill, some of those things were extended, which we can talk about on the next slide. So when we look at the timeline, 2017, the bill was drafted and passed quickly. In 2018, the law took effect, and between 2019 and 2024, research showed small wage increases, rising deficits, and growing inequality. And then just recently, July 4th of 2025, Congress passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, which extended most of the temporary provisions of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. The permanence of lower corporate tax rates and business incentives continue. to favor corporations and higher earners. And many critics warn this is going to exacerbate inequality over time. Um, all right, so let's look at the political, economic, and historical influences. So several factors influence the TCGA. Politically, the Republican controlled Congress and White House favored larger tax cuts. Economically, lawmakers argue that lowering taxes would encourage business investment and job creation. Corporate lobbyists and business associations strongly supported the bill. Um, at the same time, anti poverty groups and social justice organizations opposed it because the benefits were not evenly distributed, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities of 2021. So let's look at the strengths and weaknesses. So when we look at the strengths, um, some middle income families saw small reductions in taxes. The child tax credit expansion helps certain households with children. Businesses gain more cash flow that could be used for investment or hiring. The weaknesses kind of outweigh the strengths. High income households and corporations receive the biggest benefits. The TCGA increased the federal deficit by more than $1 trillion, according to the CBO of 2018. Income inequality widened after the policy took effect. The benefits to low income households were limited. Individual tax cuts are temporary. Um, they were temporary, and the corporate tax cuts are permanent. Rural families gain little due to limits on deductions. These weaknesses raises concerns for social justice, since women, minorities, and rural households are more likely to be low income, also including people with disabilities and seniors who are on fixed incomes. This will greatly impact them. So the current status of the problem and the needed changes. Income inequality is still high. Many families struggle due to inflation, high rent, medical costs, and wages that do not keep up. Media coverage continues to focus on debates over these extensions and these individual tax cuts or adjusting the corporate tax rate. Our Congress still remains divided about which policies to make changes to. So I don't foresee, um, this changing soon, to better people and to balance the inequality. So my policy change proposal would be to expand the child tax credit. This would be strong and meaningful. Um, the child tax credit would be permanent, fully refundable, and accessible to every low-income family. When the child tax expansion was temporarily implemented in 2021, oh, I'm sorry. When this was implemented in 2021 through the American Rescue Plan, child poverty dropped from 9.7% to 5.2% in a single year, which was the largest 1 year drop ever recorded in the United States, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities of 2021. I mean, this shows that the policy is both powerful and effective. It reached families quickly, it reduced food insecurity, it helped households afford school supplies, utilities, transportation, and childcare. Um, so if we could just expand the child tax credit, make this permanent, that would help address the long-term effects of income inequality, or at least a start. Many low-wage workers experience irregular hours, unstable jobs, and rising living costs. Being able to have that fully refundable would be an immediate help to those families. In conclusion, the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was a major tax reform, but it did not benefit all Americans equally. While some households gained from lower taxes, the largest benefits went to corporations and high income families. The policy increased the federal deficit, contributed to rising inequality. Because social work focuses on fairness and access to resources, Understanding how the TCGA affects vulnerable populations is important. Expanding the child tax credit would be a meaningful policy change that supports families, reduces hardship, and promotes economic stability. Overall, we could do better. And then here's my reference page, and thank you so much for your time.